So I'll just read out what is written here in the introduction, which was just by chance written by me. On the 18th of July 2008, something unusual happened to Rajini Menon. Everything was released from her heart. She felt all the knots dissolving and a blissful state arising from there. She had just moved into her bedroom and sat with legs folded on the bed, her back straight, eyes closed. The children were studying in the other room. They sensed that she was disturbed and never disturbed her at such times. It was 7:30 in the evening and the lights were off in her room. Her attention went to a spot slightly towards the right side, a bit lower to the center of her chest, and a single thought prevailed there, that I am this Atma, here, with no name and form. It just so happened that the last remnants of the mind were cast off totally from her, and then there was probably nothing that she had to think about. Probably her system had foreseen that thinking would extinguish her. Then a stillness spread through her entire being. From that stillness arose a blissful state. She experienced an unbearable joy and felt weightless, as though she was floating. She could not feel the presence of her body. A limitless expanse occurred. She does not know how long she was lost in that state. From then on, she could enter that state of stillness any time she wished. The first thought that came to her after she came out of that thoughtless state was, "Oh, the world is in grief for no reason. For this simple secret is shared with all. If this simple secret is shared with all, everyone can come out of grief and be blissful." The other thing that was absurd was that there were no questions left in her. That was the day when the transformation happened and the last thought, still clinging to her heart, was dropped. She had reached the brim of that maturity level and was thus blessed by divine grace and transformed. That was probably the last knot entanglement remaining that was removed. From then on, she has been living in a liberated state. Nothing ever has touched self since then. Her life totally changed, although nothing changed. One can say it was an overnight event, but it was actually never so. It was in fact a process that was taking place every second of her life, and the completion was overnight. Ever since, there has only been a state of pure wonderment. Before this final change occurred, there were some happenings in her life that are worth mentioning. It was in February 2008 that she happened one night to see her dead body on the marbled floor in the moonlight. The body, though decked up beautifully, was lying there dead, and she asked herself, "Who is lying there?" There came a spontaneous correction in the question as "What is it?" in place of "Who is this?" And the answer came spontaneously, "This is the food for worms." Later, in the months of April and May 2008, she transformed completely into the divine, where Rajini was not allowed to be present at all. This was an inevitable process in her life, as Rajini was incapable of handling situations righteously. In those tough situations, when her being righteous would mean she would be shattered to pieces, and the only way out for her to be righteous was by driving Rajini out and letting the inner divine function through her. This was intentionally done every minute of her waking state, as her presence could that very minute shatter her into pieces. The one easy way out available to her was to shun righteousness, and that would let her breathe continue. But then all that was possible only if she, in some corner of her heart, found it agreeable to do that. It was only after surviving this intense period that the final transformation happened. It is inevitable for a pure soul to undergo difficult situations in life, which are really blessings of the divine. It is not easy to handle these tough situations in a righteous way. It is here that the real test comes. Holding on to the divine may lead to your own death. And if you still hold on, it is only out of sheer unconditional love for the divine. It is in this situation of holding on to the divine, even when the very holding on can lead to an encounter with death, that the divine appears face to face. It takes over everything and you disappear. What is left is an embodiment of dharma. This is the point where you overcome death and the real birth happens, the realization of the real I. What is your name?
Krishna Vedant.
Krishna Vedant. Okay. when you were a 6-month-old baby, you did not know that your right hand and your left hand belonged to Krishna Vedanta, right?
There was nobody.
And when you grew up, when you get angry, do you have to remember that you are Krishna Vedanta? You have to effortfully remember? Or when you get very sorrowful, do you have to remember that you are Krishna Vedanta? Or when you are very excited, do you have to remember that you are Krishna Vedanta? When you are very happy, blissful, do you have to remember that you are Krishna Vedanta? No. You don't have to put any effort to know that you are Krishna Vedanta, whatever state you are in, right? So the same way, when you were a 6-month baby, you did not know you were Krishna Vedanta, right? But when you grew up, you don't have to remember that you are Krishna Vedanta in all those states. But once you go beyond that, and you know that you are not just Krishna Vedanta, but the entire expanse, then do you have to remember? It knows, and he does not have to put any effort to know that what he is.
It's spontaneous.
Yes.
But spontaneity comes from the person, because you are person behind there.
It does not come from the person. It does not. None of it.
As normal human beings, maybe not you.
See, all of us are connected. Are that that only.
That.
Okay, but what is hindering in the person who has not gone beyond, or who has not diminished the ego, whose ego has not been diminished or destroyed? What happens is, this wisdom, this knowledge, everything is in the cosmos. You want to say cosmos, you can say cosmos. If it is inside, you can say inside. It is the sprouting of the knowledge which is spontaneous, and it does not have an input. It comes, maybe you can say it's the cosmos, it's all over. But what is hindering in the people who have not been, whose ego has not been destroyed, is their ego. That is the block. Once that is gone, it is open for everyone. You understand? And your first question, a bit of it is remaining unanswered. That is, you were saying, how do I relate?
Yeah, when you relate.
Yes,
to the
I'll tell you
person
that.
or to object.
Just like you are, when you talk to a small child, you talk accordingly. When you talk to college student, you talk accordingly. You talk to different people accordingly. So the same way, it's just the only difference is he has gone beyond that. He has so known the real self. That is all. So he can still slide down all these places. Just like you are Krishna Vedanta, and you go down and up. It's like you use the machine to measure your height, and then you have a sliding thing. It's just like that. You can go to whatever level you want to, and be there.
Right. Also, you use the word ego.
Huh?
Is ego any substance? It have any substance? It is just a word, or just our attachment to the.
It's an imagination.
Yeah, that's what I am asking.
That is the cosmic joke. It's you imagine something and you do all the acrobatics to destroy it, and finally you laugh when you know that it was never there.
Thank you very much.
It's see, what is blocking is the thoughts. When you go thoughtless and it stands there, how does the thoughtless state stand there? It stands there only when you are totally purified. Only then it can stay there as the thoughtless state. Maybe all of us, or every one of us, even me as a child, we all experience that thoughtless state, but we are not aware of it. The thoughtless state comes and goes, and you're just not aware of it. But when it stays only when you are 100% purified. Then what is? Can you just imagine that? No, it's impossible to imagine. See, if an apple is shown to me, if I have to identify that it is an apple, I'll have to go to my memory storehouse to identify the color. This is red color, what I've learned in small classes. Then the shape, it's an apple. So I have to do so much of thinking to identify that it is an apple. Just think of the state when you are having no thoughts. Even these. How do you know it is an apple? How do you know this is me? How do you know there is anything? You don't have anything. It's this is only a way of pointer. You cannot you have to experience it to know. You cannot think by the mind how it is. The limitation of the body is not there. We identify that this is me and those are the CDs, cassettes. For even that we need thinking. That is not there. Just imagine, how do you know it's me and that is something else? Nothing is known. When somebody is asking, where did you leave the cup after drinking the tea? Okay, so I use my mind, okay, and I tell it is there. You ask me a thing which is pertaining to your spiritual path or something relating to the spirituality. If I have not read anything about that, a fact being, I have never read anything spiritual. When the change happened, I had never known a world of spirituality. I never knew there was something called self-realization. I did not know anything about it. I've not read anything. I've not been to discourses, nothing. So where is this knowledge coming from? Then also somebody is asking and I'm answering. Am I thinking? No. You are not there. So the flow happens. It is there in the cosmos. It just comes. It comes from nowhere, or it's the wisdom sprouts. Use my legs and go there. Otherwise, my legs are not just roaming around here. The same way, when I need to use my mind, it works. Otherwise, it is there, stable. See, spirituality is not about arguments, and you will never reach anywhere. It's a soul-to-soul transference. The knowledge is not shared to groups, never. It is a soul-to-soul transference because every soul will need different things. Actually, there is nothing to teach in spirituality. There is absolutely nothing. In fact, if he has some questions, then I have the answer, or anybody has the answer. And the answer, what the answer does is just loosen the knots, whatever that soul has. Somebody else has different question, and for that person, the answer could be something which is absolutely opposite to what I gave this person, because that is what is required for that person. Okay, and you grow, you just loosen the knots that have been created inside you, you open them and you move forward. And finally, you have to drop everything. You don't have to carry forward anything. This knowledge is only to leave that step. It's like climbing the stairs. At every step, you need some knowledge about the next step and some things about the previous step where you are standing, that this is not right, this is what is right. Okay, and you move forward. But do you think that is the ultimate? No, you have to, at the next level, you have to realize that all this is wrong, and you have to drop that and learn that this is the right thing, and that way you climb the stairs, and finally you drop everything. You don't have to carry with you anything. But if a person is ready to jump from whatever state he is into the highest step, that's it.
I'm not asking anything.
What is it that caused this? As I told you earlier, the 100% purification is required. How do you purify yourself? It's not purifying myself in front of others. It's not that you get convinced that I purified or I am right. It's convinced. I'm standing in front of the divine inside me. He is always there witnessing me. The witnessing element principle, or the inner conscience, which is the iceberg, tip of the iceberg, and the entire thing is hidden underneath. So that divine element, the witnessing principle, if you are standing in front of that and doing everything pure, clean, neat, what is righteous in front of him, That is, to think, speak and do what is the most righteous, which is coming from the inner conscience, not from the mind. The mind is for the ego, for it could be selfish, but the inner conscience is always not biased. It will be, for you, the universal thing. It will always tell you what is right. If you try to do something wrong, it will always give you a prick. No, you are not doing the right. So you have to listen to that and follow that. That is how you purify, you get purified. And whatever we have inside us as impurities is actually the vasanas coming from our previous births. So it varies from person to person. It's not that every person has 10 vasanas and these are the 10 vasanas, or these are 50 vasanas out of which you will have 5 each. Maybe different. It's not like that. It all depends on your previous life births, whatever you've been doing, the karmas you've been doing. Depending on that, you will have your vasanas. And these vasanas, which are not the righteous ones, you have to overcome them, which you have to identify. You have to put in efforts to make them the righteous ones, effortfully, and this process would purify you. There will be a day when you see that every thought that arises from you, every word that you speak, and every action that comes out of you are now from the inner conscience. There is no conflicting voice from the mind. So you reach that purity, and purification itself is not enough. Once you are purified, what happens is the circumstances will come where, because you have purified, you will not be able to do anything wrong. Automatically what happens is the circumstances which are very casual for others, for you it will be very tough. For others it will be very simple, because they are not thinking in those lines. For them it's easy to do the wrong and get away with it. But for such a person, it will be very tough. It's like if the purification process is like walking on a tightrope between two high-rise buildings, razor edge between the two high-rise buildings, it will be very tough. Because you will have to be righteous then, when probably you are strangulated to death. By being righteous, you could just get destroyed in that. Then if you still hold on to that what is righteous, when you are yourself being destroyed, what else is it but the love for the divine, which is unconditional? It is then that the divine appears. Or, it's words. These are words. In Bhagavad Gita, they say, whenever the unrighteousness increases and the righteousness is getting destroyed, I come every time. This is the actual meaning of that. He comes there when one is very righteous to save the pious one, because he is getting destroyed and he's ready to get destroyed. He's destroyed and he comes there. When the ego dies, the divine comes there. It's these are words. Can be explained like this only. Your life, whether you be the king, the cobbler, it doesn't matter. In your life, be righteous. In whatever situation comes to you, that's all. You don't have to go here and there, anywhere else for doing anything. Then what is the role of sadhana, meditation, all these things? These are only for helping you become righteous. Because when you are not able to be righteous in one situation, two situations, or maybe three situations, you have to find out what will help me to become righteous in those situations. Maybe then you will find out that, okay, listening to very good music, I get absorbed in that. When I get angry, this is what I should do, to control my anger. So that becomes your sadhana. So anything that helps you, which you are pleased with doing, which absorbs you into it and helps you get rid of that vasana, becomes your sadhana. See, first thing, you have to identify what your vasanas are. And for every person, I can guarantee you there cannot be more than 10, because all that you will have will be which are countable on your fingers. Maybe 1, 2 or 3, that's all. And you have to identify them and see how you will overcome that. Put all the efforts. You determine yourself that I will not be doing this. But what happens is you forget. Forgive yourself for having committed that mistake. Forgive yourself. You should forgive yourself as lavishly as you forgive others. Don't be strict to yourself. And after forgiving, you again even more strongly determine that I will next time do it rightly. What happens by doing this is your mind, first instance, you did not even realize that you have already done it. In the second instance, you will realize it a little earlier. In the third instance, you will realize it even a little earlier. So what happens? When it has already happened, you cannot do anything. But when you are about to do that, then it's difficult, but then you have to put in efforts. It's easier than the first stage. And in the third instance, you will come to know, oh, this very thought is coming to me. I'm not going to get indulged in that. No, you have to put in efforts, yes. You have to be like a watchdog, like a gunman sitting at the door, really alert. Because there are not many, only 3 or 4 of them. I can guarantee you that. You don't have to cross so many things as, when you start reading books, maybe you will feel, oh, when will I, cross so many things and do so many things. It's not like that. For every individual, it's very few, actually. Just have to concentrate on them. Look into yourself, where you are going wrong, where you are being unrighteous. You just have to catch hold of that. But tell you, it's very tough. Righteousness, unrighteousness, it is dependent on so many factors. In the century in which you are born, the country in which you are born, the religion and the customary, the culture in which you are born, all these affect, because every place it is different. So whatever your inner conscience tells you, it's not that what her inner conscience tells you or what some my neighbors tell, they all must be having different opinions. That's not important. What your inner conscience tells you, be true there, truthful, sincere, 100%, and just follow that. That you will not know always. You cannot miss that. Hearing the inner voice is very easy, but only following it is difficult. Whenever you try to do something wrong, something pricks you. That itself is the voice of the inner voice. Nothing great, nothing special. So you have to put efforts to be righteous. This is going to take you across the ocean of sorrowness or the world, whatever. And in 2 hours you do the sadhana, and rest of the time you live your life unrighteously. You are doing some things which are wrong. But do you think it will help you? By the sadhanas, by the meditations, you will be decreasing the vasanas. But by indulging in unrighteous life, you are increasing the vasanas. So it's like being at the same place, though you might not go down, really deep down. That is why one put in efforts for 20 years, 25 years, 30 years, 65 years, still you don't see a change in him, and you think that somebody has not done anything and there is a change. The transformation happens. It is because of this. If you are in spirituality and if some spiritual things are attracting you and you want to transform, you want to evolve to that oneness or the super consciousness, that desire itself shows you have crossed certain levels. This is not what everyone desires. Most of the people don't even know, they don't even desire. Okay, so there are people who would do and take care of that, because levels of all people are there in the world, of different levels, and they are all perfect. Everything is taken care of at every level. The entirety is actually perfection. So if you are truly desiring for that oneness, look into yourself. Don't look outside. There is nothing outside. Whatever my colleagues, my friends do to me, that's not important to me. I have to look inside me whether I am doing what is right. It's not material to me what others do. The mind slows down automatically. Because in the first case where I will be worried what this person is going to do tomorrow, what I have to do, counter that, this will give me a lot of tension and I won't be able to sleep. This will give me anxiety and the mind vibrations are more. But if I'm not concerned what others are doing, whatever they are doing, I'm going to do only good. I'm going to think only good for them. I'm going to pray for them. Then, is there any anxiety? Is there any tension in your mind? But you are sleeping blissfully. Whatever happens, you accept. It was just a title. Reality cannot be... See, when you say reality, that would mean something unreal is there. When you say truth, it would mean something untruth. will be there. So you cannot name it. But then for communicative purposes, whatever I am talking, it's not easy to say, but it's for communication. Only when somebody asks, there is nothing to say actually, nothing to teach. See, it does not mean that. Is there anything really to teach? There isn't anything, because you have to drop everything. What is there to teach and what is there to learn? Ultimately, you have to drop everything to reach that place. So what you are learning is to just, the knot switches in you, they have to be loosened. See, if you are not convinced that you have to live a righteous life, then of course you need to know why. Then that knot is removed and you move forward. No, you just move forward. It's just climbing stairs. You have to, after putting the right feet on the next step, you have to lift the left foot from the lower one. You have to drop that. Only then you will reach upstairs. They have been coming up with questions. They send emails. I send the replies. And one of the such persons, I've been writing in Orkut also. Some of the questions which I feel it's coming from the heart, and I answer them. They have been compiled all together because that person benefited a lot from these writings, and he wanted that it should reach many people so that people like him will be there, so many of them, which will benefit them. I said no. In 2009 itself he said that, and I said no question of publishing any book, because there is nothing to teach. And these questions are opening the knots of a particular person. At the most, what can benefit someone is if that the level of the two people, with the one who is reading and the one who asked, are almost the same, maybe it would benefit. Otherwise, it's useless. So it's something which should not be done. Then after 2-3 years, some of the write-ups were read by some people who are just not in the spiritual field. And they started commenting that you must write, your writings are touching the heart. I said, there are already so much of things for 5 books probably. So he said, you must publish them. And I just happened to casually convince this to the person who wanted the book to be published. And he took it as a green signal. And he looked for the publisher, he contacted Alan Jacobs, and all these things happened. And I said, okay. That is how the book came into. Any books? These are answers to questions, okay? And there is an email in the book, email ID, where anyone can ask questions. And there are already about 150 question answers questions which have come and been answered after the book has been published. So maybe if someone decides to publish them, they will get published. I don't know.
How many questions, queries are answered in this?
There are very few, because it's a first book. Probably what the book would be doing, people must be, the publisher has risk. So it was highly edited, and very few questions only have been. The point is not the questions. It's what I'm happy with is, if somebody is really truly moving in the spiritual path, then he has the access to ask his own questions, his own problems, and find out solutions. That possibility is there. That is the positive thing about the book. It's 2008, they were in school, and I used to share every little detail of my experience with them, both of them, daughter and son, and they understand everything purely, very nicely, very, even the subtlest things. It just by chance. It need not necessarily be, but they can understand all this. I've been sharing every little thing day by day. Is not from the input. Did Jesus sit and study books, or did Buddha sit and study books? Where did all the wisdom come from?
But nowadays, that is the idea of the
No.
books.
That is okay. That is okay. You can have a better life. Of course, see, mind is very, it cannot sit like that. Mind is very active. So, if you put it in the right direction and in the positive things, so it will help a lot. It is very good to have satsangs, read good books, have sadhana, all these things, because you will not let the mind go into the negative. So even a person who is living righteously, if he gets involved in these things, these are going to be very helpful, because that's the nature of the mind. The mind has a tendency to go into the negative.
There's no peace of mind.
Your peace. You yourself are peace. If you are saying that you are not having peace of mind, then you ponder who is saying that, because there is only peace. There is nothing else. There is something which is non-existent. You should look at what is said and never look at who is saying it. Never. That is the problem of the world today. You have so many religions because people started looking at who's saying it. The who has no importance, absolutely no importance. Just go by what is there. That is why I know, see, the funniest thing is, my colleagues in the office, my neighbors, no one knows anything, even a little bit. So many years now, they do not know any spiritual thing about me.
Neighbors never.
Because because it need not be. It's should never, you know. It becomes a different story.
Only those who are thirsty, you know.
And they
go
also
far
should never look at the person. The person is only an instrument.